Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts, broadcasting from our Fresno bureau, part of our vast global network. It is Friday, July 25th. I am joined by two colleagues from the Santa Barbara Independent, Ryan P. Cruz, staff writer, and the angry poodle his own self, Nick Welsh, and Josh Molina will be parachuting in at some point. But I want to get right to it, which is the news that stays news, of what's going on with immigration. And Ryan, you have a story up on independent.com right now, with some actual statistics about the scope of what ICE has been doing. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, as everybody kind of knows right now, it's really hard to get accurate or credible statistics. ICE, the federal government, are not really releasing um, county-wide numbers saying in Santa Barbara County we've arrested this many people. They've done press releases here and there, with the big cannabis raids. They did press releases there. But so 805 and DocuFund and Immigrant Coalition have kind of been the only game in the Central Coast that's been keeping track of this. And so through their rapid response hotline, they're fielding thousands of text calls and social media tips every day and checking up on if it's verified ICE activity, how many arrests there were. So, they finally were able to put together a scope of what we're seeing right now, and it looks like in the Central Coast there's at least 620 arrests, and that's in
And,
Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, and SLO,
and
and
what period of time is that?
that's from January 14th, so right before Trump took office, and up until the about 2 days ago, July 23rd. So about 6 months worth, and that's about three people a day at least. What we're seeing in Santa Barbara County, there's been about 111 total arrests, and that's including the 10 taken in Carpinteria. Ventura County has definitely seen the biggest chunk. 172 of these day-to-day arrests where we see, the ICE in these unmarked vehicles, stopping people in the street, at the courthouse, or at their place of business. And then the biggest number is that this 300 plus that were taken from this farm in Camarillo. Now that almost doubles, our whole Central Coast. That's half of our numbers, basically.
One of the things that I get every time I post something about immigration, there is some conservative will come on and, oh, you guys never complained when Obama was deporting people. And
Yeah, I think the thing is,
do
and
you
look,
have any comparison to how this would look in a
yeah,
whole state?
exactly. So if you a couple weeks ago had a story in Independent about my uncle who was actually picked up by ICE during the Obama administration, and what had happened is they came to my grandma's house and they had vests, sorry, vests, not vests, they had jackets that said ICE. They identified who they were. They let him know we have a warrant for your arrest, and he was taken to a center, and my family got to fight for him to stay here, and he was able to stay here. So
So there was a
there's
due
a
process
difference
and
in
rule of
what we're
law.
seeing. Yeah, what we're seeing is the videos of these kind of jump out cowboys, and now we're seeing these vests, these balaclava vests, sunglasses, these caps pulled very low, these very unorganized groups of unmarked vehicles, and they're kind of just doing what they want to do. They're not responding to people when people are asking, "What are you here for? Do you have a warrant?"
And we still
And
haven't seen a warrant
we,
about these
st we
folks.
still haven't seen a warrant from the raids, and I think that is the main difference when we see these videos of how it's been carried out during the Obama administration when it was we're going after criminals. We'll show you the people we're going after. And in the case we're seeing right here, we're seeing people get kidnapped off the street that were picking up recycled cans and bottles. And what I shudder to think of the 10,000 agents they're gonna hire, the type of people that see these videos and
Yeah,
say,
it's all the
I want to do
January
that.
6th guys.
That see
All the
these
guys
videos
that
and say,
pardoned.
I can be indiscriminate. I can kind of do what I want to do. I can be a cowboy. It really terrifies me to think what kind of people will sign up in the next couple months.
Nick,
Under
Nick,
Obama, we didn't have people smashing truck windows or car windows and dragging people out or parents out in front of their children. I mean, the whole point here, it's really hard to not come to the conclusion this is done to maximize terror and to get people to self-deport. And um, and I think it's working.
It is
yeah,
working. I've heard lots of stories of people that you just decided to call it quits and go back home and try to wait it out and see if they can come back in the country later. But it's really that fear, we've seen the big two raids in Carpinteria and Camarillo that put a big level of fear out there where we're not seeing as many day-to-day ICE pickups, but those big raids really scare people and people
All
are
right,
afraid of
well,
Fiesta
let me
and things
ask
like
all
that.
three of you. We got Fiesta coming next week, which is probably, our, well, is our largest gathering of individuals and probably a lot of people at risk. Nick, you wrote about the Coscarones this week and that. What are you looking for in Fiesta? Nick, let me start with you.
Well, what we've already heard is that the carnival that was slated for the Boys and Girls Club over on the east side, it would have been the first time this year, is to supplant the other carnivals that aren't happening. And there was music already. The organizer of it, Mark Alvarado, who a lot of people know, backed out and said there are not enough people, and there's too much fear and uncertainty for us to put the $25,000 up front to hire the people we need to hire to pull this off. So that one has been called off. Our Lady of Guadalupe is going on. I talked to them. They said, no, we're pedal to the metal. We're doing it. You hear lots of rumors. Um, 4th of
Oh, and
July numbers.
Fiesta themselves are like, no problem. The old,
Fiesta is they're a little bit tone deaf. They are not acknowledging the fear that people are feeling or the possibility. I spoke with Kelly McAdoo, the city administrator, and said she spoke with Kelly Gordon, the city police chief. And they both kind of came to a very reasonable conclusion that it's not likely because if ICE were to try something like that in such a heavily populated teeming mass and people got mad, they would be so surrounded. It would be Custer's last stand. My words, not Kelly McAdoo's.
yeah.
Um,
Josh, Fiesta, among other things, is a big economic boost for the city. Sell a lot of booze and food during that week. What you hearing anything about concern at City Hall or elsewhere from your sources? You're muted, Josh. Josh, you're muted. There you go.
Got it. Sorry. Um, I'm totally disheveled this morning, so sorry. Sorry for joining late,
No,
but
we couldn't tell.
it was a historic moment. Josh was muted. Go ahead.
You hide it well.
so uh I think there are some elected officials who are deliberately going to lay low from the perception of wanting to appear as though they're celebrating too much during Fiesta. So I think that there's that. There might be people going to minimal events and not wanting to be supporting old Spanish days this year.
Well, Kristen and Randy have both always been out there, all fully costumed and so on. What do you think they're gonna?
I'm sure Randy will still be out there. I think, I think he's supportive of local residents. I don't think that, he's supportive of obviously the deportations. And he's a Santa Barbara guy, and Fiesta's a Santa Barbara guy. So I think he's going to try to straddle both lines and do both. And Kristen will probably lay low. I think she's running for office, and I think she's very aware of the perception of looking like you're just forgetting about what happened 3 weeks ago in Carpinteria, and the fact that there's two stories of Fiesta, right? There's, forgive me, all the white people on the board who run Fiesta, who dress up in these cowboy outfits and go around in tight suits and parade themselves as old Spanish day,
Go to the mutton rodeo. Yes.
right? And so there's that world. Honestly, that world does not exist to a lot of the like everyday people who just celebrate Fiesta. Like they don't care about those folks, they don't know about those folks, and they don't go to those events. For them, for regular, the rest of us, Fiesta is more of a opportunity to meet up with friends, to gather, to see people you haven't seen in a while, and obviously eat and drink and socialize and crack eggs on people's heads and
And
sort
drink
of
some more.
it's a gathering. And so those are the people that are have to be concerned about what's going to happen if ICE decides to
Right.
make its presence known. And so it's kind of sad. It's two stories of
Right.
Fiesta.
Yeah, Ryan, what are you hearing from the your sources who are trying to fight back against ICE here?
I think there's obviously not too much danger at, the courthouse or on the mission steps or at the zoo during digs, right? Those aren't, like Josh says, those events, those aren't going to be harmed at all. There's no danger there. It's Guadalupe, it's the streets outside of that. Those Guadalupe churches are a sanctuary, but we've seen ICE show up outside courthouses, inside courthouses where they're not supposed to be. And I don't personally think that, ICE would show up because we've had protests, public protests against ICE. We've had, demonstrations and other gatherings that would have been where people were scared to go out. And luckily ICE didn't show up. And I'm hoping that we can have a week of, community celebrations. And I think it would be a PR nightmare to have ICE masked up show up and pick up some Cascarone sellers on State Street. I think.
Yeah, except these guys love PR nightmares.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
so
interesting to go to that point. Our district attorney, John Sabernax, was the one who was saying, the way they're doing this makes you think it is intentional. They're trying to provoke a backlash. They're trying to pick a fight so they can then come back and finish it.
Yeah, and to the people of Carpinteria's credit, they didn't give them that violent fight. And I know some people in Camarillo, it got a little bit more wild out there. There were a lot more people. It got a lot more aggressive. In Carpinteria, the people didn't really bite when
No, they didn't.
they let off the flashbangs and rubber bullets and smoke grenades. People were screaming, people were yelling and angry, but there was nobody that threw a punch or did anything like that.
Hey, Nick, all three of you have done a lot of reporting on the response of local government to all this, which has been very supportive of the immigrant community. But, Kelly Gordon, once again, is very impressive here. But what's going on with Sheriff Bill? Is he still, I have to say, when I covered the Cory Booker events last weekend, and people were talking about a recall of Bill Brown, which I sort of did a double.
That's the sort of thing that you have. How many mimosas had they had?
But
Bill
he's in a
Brown,
tough spot.
So just earlier today, I got a email. It's a letter to Bill Brown signed by 56 elected officials. Salud Carvajal, a Congress member, was at the top of the list. Monique Limon, a state senator and soon to be Senate president, and Greg Hart shortly thereafter. But lots of city council members throughout, education, school board members, basically calling on Bill Brown, who a lot of people don't know it. Bill is the president of a national entity. I think it's called the American Major Sheriffs Association. I'm sure that's not precisely the name, but major sheriff's agencies. And use his bully pulpit and his stature as a national law enforcement officer to call for de-escalation is the word. They're not saying don't enforce the law against criminals. They're not saying don't pick up criminal immigrants. They're saying de-escalate the way this is being done.
And he does have a pulpit. He has a national platform.
He has a national platform to do that. They have pointed out that a sheriff, I think in Denver or Boulder, Colorado, has done the same thing. Again, he doesn't. I don't know that he is in the same, head of the major sheriffs. But Bill has a platform. When he spoke at the Board of Supervisors 2 weeks ago on a lot of this stuff, nobody had asked him this at that point. He showed up and spoke, and that was to his credit, because a lot of people were dubious and thought maybe he wouldn't. He does not give a lot of empathy. He says, we're not we are not cooperating with ICE. We're not part of ICE. We
But he doesn't disapprove of it. He doesn't
he
say,
says it's not a good look with the mask, but there was a really interesting back and forth between Supervisor Roy Lee, who is hardly a fire breather. He is about as soft spoken as you're going to find in an elected official, and he's saying, "Hey, what if I'm walking down the street and these guys from ICE come and they detain me and they want to kidnap me? Are you going to help me?" And Bill Brown sort of explained how, well, local law enforcement can't get in the way of federal, and he's right. And that didn't go over with Roy. And Roy said,
"No,
so,
I talked to Roy about that on Sunday, and he's there. I said, hey, you went about 10 rounds with Bill. He says, yeah, and he said he's not going to protect me. I mean, that was the bottom line.
right. And Roy was saying, so you're not going to do anything. And then Bill said, no, I'm not saying nothing. And then Bill gave him some more explanation. And then Roy Lee's response was, when he was through, was, so between little or nothing.
Yeah.
Which again, Roy Lee isn't that kind of guy typically.
We got to get on to other stuff, but Josh, I do want to ask you, you had an interesting podcast on Santa Barbara Talks this week with Andy, who's working, say a word about her and what's going on there.
Well, Andy Garcia grew up on the east side. She has an Instagram site called Ortega Park SB, and she's just like one of the local hero types who is in the community, doesn't just talk about the community. She's in it, she lives it, she knows people, and she has started to, among other people, go out and sort of look for ICE vehicles and then post it on Instagram to sort of let the community and the neighborhood know that, hey, we think this is a nice vehicle on Voluntario Street or some street. And so that is what she's doing. And it's a really great public service, along with several other organizations and individuals who are doing this. I had Andy on the show, of course. 805 DocuFund is obviously the leader and the umbrella over a lot of these groups, and Primitiva Hernandez also. But I know Danny from my reporting, so I had her on the show, and she's great. She didn't pull any punches. That's what you love about her. Real people. They say real things. They don't speak in code. And she says our people are being hunted, our people are being exterminated, and this is wrong, and we have to stop it. And if you're not saying something, you're going to be on the wrong side of history here. And so she was great, and she's still doing it. She's up at the crack of dawn, and then it ties in. She's really supportive of Police Chief Kelly Gordon, but she wants to know why the people, the community members, are the only ones who are out there looking for ICE. Why can't law enforcement, also using social media, be doing the same thing? And so she's also pushing for some change there. But it is a very good episode. If you want raw talk on both of our parts, it's a good episode.
Yeah, before we close on this, I just want to say a word about Ryan, because you really been leading the way on your reporting on this. And we talk a lot about news makers out there, but how does it get done? And the thing is, Ryan, you were talking about these folks and cultivating these sources and being in touch with them. As soon as Trump was elected, going back months and months before he was, and that's how you find out things, and that's how you uh, work a beat. And I just want to give you props on that, because
Let me just add that the time the interview took place where he got those numbers, it was 10 o'clock at night. So, that's what you have to do.
Yeah,
they're so busy.
Yeah, 805 and DocuFund, they are God bless them. They got a skeleton team of 5 people. They had 4 people. They hired one more staff member and a gang of volunteers. And it's people like them and Andy Garcia. And there's a bunch of these like Instagram and social media pages that are on the streets making sure their community is safe. And that really helps me stay informed. Matter of fact, I was speaking with Andy, I think maybe 20 minutes before the Carpinteria raid. We were talking about what she's doing on the streets. And we were talking about another story. If you guys are not busy this weekend, you guys should go see the 2-part double feature at Alcohama Theater. There's going to be an immigration related piece and another,
Oh, is that movie that was made? What's the
yeah,
movie called
it's called
again?
Salí se puede Street. It's written by somebody from Santa Barbara. It's about a family torn apart by separation. So, we were doing an interview about that. And right after that, we both had gotten messages about this raid that's going on. So we both, had to jump into action. And, it really has been, it's stressful, I will say, covering this, especially something that's been close to my family. My family arrived in the country the same way as a lot of these people that are getting taken, and it's stressful to see these videos every day. You have to remind yourself, and Andy and Primitiva and all of them. I know it's hard for all of us to take time and decompress after this, but this is important work, and keeping the community informed. What Andy's doing in 805 and DocuFund is. It's just they're going above and beyond, and they're keeping the people more informed than the local governments in a way, and that's kind of drawing frustration from the people. Like Josh said,
Well, you know what, though, that's the way it is nationally. I mean, there's
yeah,
no institutional pushback against this guy,
and
including
it's
the Democrats who got their head, somewhere else. It's just
it feels like a crazy. We live in a crazy world where we want
it's
something to
all
happen. Yeah, we
coming
want.
from the street. That's the only opposition that there is. Before we close on this, one quick thing, Nick, you had a story last week that I don't want to lose because I haven't seen anywhere else. That the low-income clinics in town are now requiring proof of citizenship.
Okay, I got a little ahead of myself. Though I will say this is what I was told by the county health chief. But yeah, on the same day of the raid in Carpinteria and Camarillo, the Department of Health Services sent a note to the county. I mean, and they said all of your sort of low-income health clinics. There would be American Indian clinics, neighborhood clinics, the 5 or 6 public health clinics that the county of Santa Barbara runs that targets underserved populations. They will now need to require proof of citizenship before serving their clients. Now, and there's a 30-day comment period, whatever that means, and nobody knows yet how this will be implemented. So I think I've definitely heard from people saying you're kind of triggering a stampede prematurely with that article. We haven't worked out the implementation strategy yet. None of us worked it out.
The policy
was set down. This is our good friend Robert Kennedy, and all of his. We're going to get rid of red dye number 2, but we're going to deny people health care. And I was talking to the head of county health, and I was saying, so how is this going to affect you guys? He goes, well, it's going to affect more than just the people who. He goes, we have never had to require proof of anything. So to put in perspective, this program was started in the 1960s as part of Lyndon Baines Johnson's war on poverty, and at that point, you did not ask about. You didn't care. You didn't ask. Then under Bill Clinton's administration, it went very. You can't ask about people's immigration status. It's absolutely you don't, because you wanted to make people as maximally comfortable and unafraid coming in. Now you have to. So it's a big thing.
Now we're all going to be at risk for tuberculosis. Thank you very much, Tom.
Yeah, right. TB for all of us.
Yeah, because you can't go get treated when you have a cough because you'll be arrested by us.
And really what he said, he said, look, okay, people aren't going to get the prenatal treatment that they want. That they typically got. People are going to wind up going into the ER because people will get, at a certain point, you go, I don't care. I'm sick. I need to live. I'll take my chances legally, but I need the health care. The ERs are going to be feeling it.
All right. Just real quick on a couple other things to close. Josh, The long-running tenant landlord dispute at 215 Bath got resolved. You and Ryan both wrote about this. What's the bottom line?
Well, the bottom line, I guess, is that the three tenants who had unlawful detainers at 215 Bath Street have to move out within 60 days. And so that judgment was, I guess, Monday. So 60 days from that. And they don't have to pay back rent going back to March or April 2024. And so essentially, this is one of those cases where if you talk to the attorneys for 215 Bath Street, they declare it a total victory for them because they got these tenants out. And, at least one of the tenants, they're very happy to get out. And then the tenant side and the Legal Aid Foundation, they call it a victory because they say these tenants did not have to pay this back rent. So it's equivalent to anywhere from, like $30,000 to $40,000 during that period that they would have had to pay. But essentially, the bottom line is 215 Bath Street, the owners, they can proceed with their renovations, and these three individuals who they served unlawful detainers have to be out, and they've got to find somewhere else in the marketplace to be able to stay. And they got relocated. They're going to get relocation or assistance. The team for 215 Bath says if this had gone to trial, there were 2 days of trial and then they settled. If they'd gone to trial, they think they would have won. And that's why the Legal Aid Foundation decided to settle for their team. Legal Aid just says, hey, they never made us a deal like this before. They were always trying to get back rent. So they don't have to pay back rent. That's the equivalent of, it's like $30,000 that they won't have to pay. So there's a lot of back and forth about who the real winner is. I don't think anyone's a winner here. I know Austin Hurley. I do think he's a good guy. He means well, but at the end of the day, you had a lot of tenants who live there who are not going to be living there. And I know at least one building is the international students. And so, though, some people, a lot of them actually left, like they're out of Santa Barbara already. So you do have displacement of tenants. That being said, this project did serve as sort of the symbol for the right to return ordinance. So
That's
Legal Aid Foundation and Tenants Union was very successful in that regard because now if people are evicted, they have to come back within 10% of that rent. So I guess, that's a victory on that end, but still individuals are having to move out.
Yeah, Ryan, it's of course just a level set. The 215 Bath was the first big eviction case in Santa Barbara. We've been talking about it on the show for a couple of years. I mean, for me, it's hard to see how you say it's a victory for tenants, although Josh does raise a good point. I mean, maybe lost the battle, but won the war.
Yeah, it's definitely not, an outright victory either way, but I think, when you get some time in hindsight, the tenants, did a David versus Goliath type fight, money wise with what they were working with. They could have left a long time ago and kind of just given up, and a lot of their neighbors did. One thing that I saw out of this is, of course, the ordinance, eviction ordinance got tightened. It got changed. We now have a 1 year cooling off period where if somebody bought a property like this, they wouldn't be able to serve a termination notice the next day. They would have to wait a year. Now that's another small victory. And of course, the city council has a more tenant friendly makeup now. And then the EF experiment that was in one of those buildings, EF is pulling out of that. They didn't have a good experience there. There was problems with the tenants that were there and the EF students, and it just wasn't a happy situation all around. And they're going to end their group lease in August. So it's kind of, that one positive that I will take out of this is there's still some of the original tenants there. That is something that they fought for their right to stay, and the fact that they are going to get to stay. There's a Spanish-speaking, hardworking family there that I got to know over the time of reporting there, and to know that they were very scared of getting in trouble, of getting evicted, of what was going to happen if they spoke out, but they still were willing to, stand up for themselves, and they have the right to stay there now. They got a 1 year lease offer. And so it's not really an outright win either way, but you can spin it.
All
either
right.
But I think
I'm
for
gonna guess we're not gonna see Wendy Santa Maria celebrating Fiesta. I'm gonna go on a little limb here. What do we think?
you know
No.
what, that may be, but another thing is there's a certain element of defiance in the celebration. You know what? You're not gonna you're not gonna stop me from dancing. You're not gonna stop me from having a party. Screw you. I'm here.
I will
That
say,
is really
yeah.
what you want to do. You want to
All
know.
right. All right, listen, so we talked about that for a couple of years, but that is nothing compared to the Refugio pipeline, which we spoke about on the very first episode of Newsmakers, then called City Desk, back in 2015. So it's only been 10 years we've been talking about this issue. Nick, you have a piece in this week's paper about the latest judicial opinion about the Sable oil thing. I now challenge you here to take less than 10 years to explain it.
You know what? I don't know if I can.
Got to use your favorite headline though, Nick.
Yeah, and I was so desperate in writing this one. I didn't just use cutting the baby in half in the lead. I had cutting the baby in half and kicking the can down the road in the lead. I mean, I was pulling out every
Newsmakers' big book of news cliches. Thank you very much.
Okay, in the trench warfare over reactivating the pipeline and reactivating the big, what used to be Exxon's platforms off the coast and the plant on shore, this is like our big knockdown, drag out melodrama. With the rulings 2 or 3 weeks ago, Judge Deck issued a temporary restraining order saying, State Fire Marshal, you can't even begin to do anything to process the application to restart. But it was a temporary restraining order, and this ruling was a subsequent ruling, and it was for a permanent injunction, or a temporary permanent injunction. The legalese is pretty convoluted. And Judge Jack said, you're premature, you're too soon with that. We're gonna let the fire marshal begin to process the restart application, but we're not going to allow restart to actually happen until all of the agencies, all of the many agencies that have permits and approvals to give have done so. And then plus 10 days on top of that to give the enviros a chance to file whatever legal papers to oppose it. So in the cutting the baby in half department, I would say the baby got cut in 2/3. The Sable got 2/3, and the enviros won 1/3.
But meanwhile, more work for lawyers.
More work for lawyers.
Yeah. Okay.
This is why I don't have any Sable bylines, because I didn't understand a word Nick said. But good job, Nick.
Well, to his credit, he only took
not.
8 years to explain it, so that was pretty good. He got it.
But to be fair, to Josh's point, what I wrote, my interpretation of what the ruling said in the article I wrote on the streets, I got wrong. And I needed to go back and correct it online. So the problem with this is there's nobody to talk to other than the EDC who will actually say, hey, okay, they'll pick up a phone and say, this is what we think it means. Sable will tell you after the fact, this is why you got it wrong.
Yeah, right. That's the Trump model.
And the county of Santa Barbara is not involved.
All right. Well, meanwhile, no oil going through that pipeline yet. All right. We got to get out of here. But Josh, he had a story that just, I don't know. It was like Sully's secret dream or something about what the hell are they doing to Cliff Drive now? So they're gonna turn it into the promenade in District 2. What's this new transformation of Cliff Drive that's happening?
Well, Cliff Drive used to be a highway and the state controlled it. And so it's very wide, right? It's very wide. And so the city got control of it, I don't know, 15 years ago or something. And so they're trying to figure out a way to make it more bicycle, pedestrian friendly. There are a lot of people who live there on, part of Cliff Drive. Well, actually, both sides of Cliff Drive there. And then also, a lot of people go to City College, so it's important to have that. So basically, what are they going to do? They're going to add traffic signals. They're going to add lighted crosswalks, these flashing beacons. And what's kind of cool, since I go there frequently, is they're going to eliminate one of the entrances to City College, put up a bike path, and everyone's going to enter sort of on one side. It is kind of a little dangerous turn out there. And if you're ever trying to turn left out of City College, up Cliff Drive, that is treacherous for sure. They're putting a traffic signal there. So I think it's something that is controversial, of course, because anytime you disrupt the way cars move, people come out of the woodwork. But they've done a lot of work with the neighbors, and I think a lot of residents are supportive of it. They are there's a little commercial strip there on the corner of Carrillo and Cliff, and they're going to turn that into one way and put in angled parking. So these government agencies,
like in Goleta, like in Old Town, that kind of angle park.
yeah, it's a small strip, but
God.
in this case, Jerry, if you've ever tried to turn in there in your vehicle, it is a little chaotic because you've got cars going in both directions. So unlike Old Town, I think this is a good idea
You
for
fellas may
sure.
not have noticed, but as you age, once you get past the age of 70, your ability to parallel park and also go in reverse declines by 25% per year. So this is a very bad idea.
Try angled parking.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
worse.
I did try it. I did try it once. All right. Anything else? Oh, the 101. That's good. That's only 20 years in our future. It'll all be good.
We'll all
Yeah,
be
so
dead.
they had a big event, $134 million, a check from the federal government, and they have funding to finish it. And I think the end is in sight, the last part, into Santa Barbara. And actually, as a practical matter, speaking of, the roads, Nick and Ryan would know this, but like whenever they cut off the way to get on the highway going south, and so you got to go to Milpas backwards or up Coast Village Road. As part of this project, they're going to reopen that southbound Highway 101 at Cabrillo, which is very good deal, along with a bunch of bicycle improvements that Nick would love. But
So this is the ultimate defeat for Helene Schneider.
she was there at the event.
Really?
Yeah.
And she
Well,
was
she obviously
writing
was
history,
advocating.
was she, or what?
Jerry, Helene was advocating on behalf of the city to make sure there was mitigation because of the impacts this would cause the city of Santa Barbara. I believe they call them parallel projects.
All right.
I
Okay.
know Helene watches your show, so that's my best.
I
No, here's the deal: is Helene and the city. It wasn't just Helene. It was the city administrator. It was the city traffic engineer. They were all and the unanimous planning commission. So it wasn't just Helene being a stooge of whatever special interest she likes to think. And they were saying when you have this freeway widening, the city of Santa Barbara is going to feel a lot of consequences of people getting off the streets and flooding our streets because they're going to get jammed up downtown on the freeway. And she was just trying to get mitigation for that.
All right. So here's yet another story where both sides claim victory. So now we've had, I think, three of those to say, okay, we got on the rent control, we got on Sable, we got on the 101. So Newsmakers is the place where you like to come for nuance and complexity.
Well, the train is coming in October, Jacob.
Huh?
I mean, Jerry. So
The train is?
the Metrolink train is supposed to come in October. So
All right.
I mean, I think it's a victory.
What's the date on that? What's the over-under date on that? I'll take the over.
It's
October,
late
what
October
year?
is the plan.
Yeah. October what year?
Yeah.
2029.
All right. Ryan P. Cruz, Nick Welsh, and Josh Molina. Thank you so much. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time on Newsmakers.
See ya.